Welcome to the HCI family of podcasts. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We share our own original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. Join us for practitioner-oriented content around all things leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with the HCI family of podcasts. Ted Bradshaw, welcome to the conversation today.
Great to be here, John. Excited for this talk.
It is great to be with you. You're joining us from Banff, Canada. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about your book, Stop Chasing Squirrels, 6 Essentials to Find Your Purpose, Focus, and Flow. Now, let me just say, in the pre-interview, we were chatting about locales. We were chatting about all sorts of different things. But I am so jealous about where you're located. That is like one of my bucket list places. I've never been. I definitely want to go. It just looks like the most gorgeous place in the world. So I'm super jealous. Someday I'm going to get there. But that's not really the purpose for the conversation today. I just wanted to say that. Wonderful to have you, and I'm excited to talk about your book and this idea of talking about purpose, focus, and flow is something that I really do think a lot about, and I think it's something that's really important for the modern day leader in this hectic, crazy, complicated world that we're in today. So this is what we're going to be exploring together. As we get started, I wanted to share Ted's bio with everybody. Ted Bradshaw served as an executive with Xerox and IBM, then left Fortune 500 world to explore the thrills of entrepreneurship. What he found was a long string of success that looked great on the surface, but underneath it all, he felt anxious, exhausted, and stressed, chasing money wherever it led and wondering why he ever felt fulfilled. Along his journey, Ted gained valuable insight into how a person can achieve fulfillment in all aspects of life, and he shares those insights with his best-selling book, Stop Chasing Squirrels. Today, Ted lives his passion in helping others find theirs. A leading proponent of the entrepreneurial operating system, Ted is a speaker, author, and expert EOS implementer and the community leader for OES worldwide. And you can learn more at tedbradshaw.com. Ted, great to have you. Anything you would like to highlight by way of your background or personal context before we dive on in?
Well, first, again, thanks, John, for having me here. And you are welcome in Banff at any time at all. And let me know when you're coming. I'll show you the sights. It is, I think, the most beautiful spot in the world. Now, yeah, I just want to say before we get kicked off on what we're going to talk about today, that those listeners that you have out there, I can. I'm very certain I've been where they are and, maybe where their mindset is. And I just want to encourage them that if they're in any way feeling some of the things that we're going to discuss today, there's absolutely paths forward because I've seen some pretty low lows and, looking back, those were all just part of the journey. So hopefully everyone feels optimistic by the time, optimistic and confident by the time we're finished today.
Yeah. It is part of the journey, right? And that's the thing is we all have our ups and downs. We all have zigzagging, journeys and careers. And I don't know a single person who's had a perfectly linear upward journey. Maybe
Right.
they exist, but I haven't met them. So
Neither have I. The lucky few.
yeah, the lucky few.
They're just, I guess they can just keep going. What, John? That's why we don't see them. We don't meet them because they're just somewhere else.
That's right. All right. Well, before we launch into kind of the nuts and bolts of the book, I always like to ask authors, why this book? Why now? Just kind of the why behind the book, because it's a hard thing, it's a real work of passion itself just to get a book out there to the world.
Yeah. Why I wrote it was therapeutic, quite frankly. It's not an autobiography, but in ways it is. As the intro you stated, by measures of, I think the way we get measured or the way we think what success looks like from a very young age, our parents, expecting certain things from us, the world expecting certain things from us. I was pretty much checking the boxes. And as far as I could tell, I should feel very happy and fulfilled because I'm checking these boxes because everybody told me that's what success and happiness looks like. And so you can imagine the the conflict, the inner conflict when you actually achieve certain things, yet the the promise of feeling good about it is fleeting. And I really, what gave me the motivation to read the book is when I started to do some of the business coaching that I do after I finished with my own businesses,
Mm,
and I saw other successful people feeling
hmm.
the same way. And then I knew I wasn't alone. And that is what gave me the courage to write the book to help others. That once I saw that hey, it's not just me. It's many successful air quotes people feeling the same way.
Yeah, I mean, and I think tons of people feel that way. I mean, I think that's at the heart of what's behind so many midlife crises that are out there. Like so many people just find themselves trapped midlife, mid-career. They've done all the things that they were told would make them happy, all the societal things, all of the norms, all the expectations, and then they find themselves kind of midstream at the point where they should feel fulfilled and they're just not. And then they're like,
Yeah,
what has all the sacrifice been for? There's it's more complicated than that. There's more to it than
yeah,
that. But I think that's
yeah.
one of the drivers behind that phenomenon of midlife crisis. And yeah, so it's in large part about alignment, right? And about shedding external expectations and finding your purpose.
Hmm.
Um, and that's a hard thing because we're bombarded from the time we're just little children. That's all we get is like external socialization and expectation. And I mean, it's necessary as kids, right? That's the only way
Yeah,
we learn.
right.
But as we get older and as we start to come into ourselves and we start to become autonomous adults, right? Like we have to learn how we can, become our own authentic human. And it's hard to learn how to shed those external expectations. And for many people, they kind of never do, or it takes them, half a lifetime to get there.
Yeah, it is hard. It is hard, and you're right. As we're being socialized, as we're developing those relationships in childhood and beyond, the we talked a little bit too about the lucky few that maybe just found themselves in a place where they were aligned with, I use and many of us use the term purpose.
Hmm.
I think really that's just a nice simple way to explain you're right where you're supposed to be.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think most of us, that just isn't the case. We're not born into that perfect situation.
Mm.
We, as we grow up, as we meet new friends, as we choose our careers, often not of our own choosing, but again, what others are telling us we should do to be stable and safe and all of the other things. We continue to go down a path that really isn't where we're supposed to be. Now, not completely, of course, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
there are we find ourselves on course that maybe isn't truly authentically aligned. And that's a great word, a great way to describe it that you had. We're not aligned. The inner self isn't aligned with the external experience. And that causes a great deal of anxiety.
Yeah. So, and one of the things I was thinking as you were describing your own journey, which I think reflects, the journey of a lot of people, is you end up with this cognitive dissonance that is occurring,
Mm-hmm.
as you have all these expectations, all these things that you thought would come about through your years of education and experience and hard work and sacrifice, and none of it, or at least not as much of it as you thought, comes to fruition. And so there's this cognitive dissonance that occurs.
Yeah.
Like, I thought all these things would happen. I was told over and over and over again, repeatedly, that all these things would be the outcomes, and none of these occurred, or at least they didn't happen the way I was told, or to the extent I was told. And then you're wondering, just like, why? What was it all for? Or maybe it does work for other people that way, but for whatever reason it just doesn't work for me that way. And why? What's wrong with me? So we often ask ourselves that question. Like it seems to work for my neighbors, but for me, like I'm just like miserable. Like what's the problem? And the answer is it's nothing wrong with you. Like we're just all different. Like we all have different needs and we all have, different ways that we interact with the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And that you're absolutely right. The dissonance that occurs when we do everything that we were told or we think that is right, and it doesn't get the result that we were told it would get. Now, where are we? Now we're lost. It's one
Hmm.
thing to, you know, it's one thing to not follow a course or to not follow guidance and then not get the results. There's still some opportunity in that because we can reflect on it and say, well, you know what? I guess that's why they said do it this way, because
Right.
I did it
Yeah.
a different way and I ended up not where I want to be. So you still have that hope. You still have an option. Well, when you do the thing that you were supposed to do and actually achieve the thing that they told you you would achieve, but it doesn't give you that sense of achievement. Now what? Now you're like, well, I did it. I guess there is something wrong with me. Must be me, because someone, our neighbors seem to be perfectly content. But that's also often a little bit of a what's on the outside as well. That projection of our neighbors appearing to be happy, appearing to be fulfilled, but many of them feeling exactly the same way we are.
Because yeah, exactly. I mean, and maybe they are, and sometimes they are, but a lot of times they're just really good at putting on a facade, like we all are.
Right.
Like, uh, and most people, the thing is, we're feeling that way. We're feeling unfulfilled, but most people would look at us and say, "Oh, they're doing so well. They're so happy. Everything's perfect
Yes.
for them. Why is everything perfect for them, but not for us?" So the same
Yes.
way we're looking at our neighbors, thinking, "Why is everything great for them and not for us?" They're thinking the same thing, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's it. That's right. That's right. Yeah. And it's because it's not bad. We're not talking about like when things are really bad, they're bad. And yeah, you can see it. That's not what we're talking about here. 80% of things can be, hey, it's okay. It's okay. There's moments of happiness. We talked sports before this as well. And hey, I go to that game, I feel good. I watch my favorite player, I feel good. 80% of stuff it's, but we tend to overemphasize the negative, don't we?
Hmm.
Right? If we got 80% of things are going pretty good, it's when we're in that 20% gap that we really focus 80% of our attention on it. And so that's where kind of the solutions are actually in the margins in a lot of cases here.
Yeah, yeah. So we've already kind of dived in and we've talked about the purpose piece, and I'm sure there's more we can say about that. But in your subtitle, well, actually, before we get there, I just have to ask because I love the main title of your book, Stop Chasing Squirrels.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
you can speak to that a little bit. I think it's kind of implicit in what we've already been talking about, but talk to that a little bit. And we've talked about purpose a bit, and maybe then we can start to talk about focus and flow.
Yeah. So the title directly comes from watching it was my 6-year-old son at the time. He was playing soccer in our backyard, and I
Mm.
was playing. He was in net, and I'm shooting on him, and he's focused. Like he's highly competitive, and so does not want to get scored on. I'm pretty competitive too, so I want to score on my 6-year-old, and I figure if I can, that's a major accomplishment. Um, but so he's focused on me taking this kick, and then all of a sudden, this squirrel comes shooting out from a bush, and he completely abandoned his mission. Like he all of a sudden stopping the ball did not matter. Just going to chase, like literally the proverbial, he went and started to chase this squirrel, and it totally took his attention. And I'm very confident that if 3 or 4 other squirrels jumped out, he would have been running around in circles in our backyard. So that was sort of my first sort of like, that's where this comes from. But then I watched as I'm working with many leaders and managers in the session room as we're working on trying to, work towards their vision. and all get on the same page, and they do get on the same page, the smallest of things can distract them and take them away from their mission. And so I literally saw this in action with adults. And it can be so interesting sometimes that those that are particular, and for your visionary listeners out there, I'm talking to you right now. I literally have to put the visionary types with their backs to the window because if
Mm,
they're looking at things outside, there's a million different things going on. And so it's really this when we're not really feeling grounded and like I said, where we're supposed to be, it's natural to be, maybe I should be over there. Maybe I should be over there. And all of these shiny objects that can distract us. And those are the squirrels that can take us off of our true life course. And that's where the title came from. And if I did nothing else right with the book, I think I picked a pretty good title.
yeah, and that what movie is that from? Emperor's New Groove. So my kids love that movie, Emperor's New Groove, and they're like
Oh,
squirrel, and
okay.
they go in different directions,
Yeah.
right? Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny, but we all know leaders like that, right? Like they're
Oh, yeah.
constantly chasing the latest like new little thing and they can't like stick to anything.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, it's energizing and it's fun and you're chasing new ideas. On the other hand, it is exhausting and it's so distracting and you just can't get anything done, right? So
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
love
And if
that.
you're a leader, imagine others trying to keep up with that. If it's exhausting for us or the leader, imagine the team trying to keep up with that.
Yeah, and I've actually heard like there's one leader I've been working with who has this approach, this mentality, but they really think it is what everyone should do. Like I've been trying to help them understand why, we don't like visionary leadership is important. Like that's
Yes.
good, but you
Yes.
do have to have a measured approach too, and you can't constantly be, going in every which direction. But in their mind, they're like, no, everyone has to keep up with me, and that's
Right.
that's their mentality. I'm like, okay, but you gotta meet people where they're at too, and you're gonna burn
Yes.
everyone out because no, like you're literally just everyone is like literally running on this hamster wheel constantly, like not being able to make any progress because everything's changing constantly.
Absolutely. It's whiplash. It's
Hmm.
organizational whiplash. Yeah. And you're right. Those visionary leaders, we do need them. They create things, they make things, they're setting
Yeah.
the future. Uh, they're not particularly good at actually seeing those things through to actually execute because they often change direction.
Yeah.
They do need others to get things across the finish line, or you end up with 100 half finished, interesting ideas.
Well, I also have to say, this is not the point of your book. This is not the point of your title. But when you're telling the story of your son, I also just have to think, it also brought to mind just kind of the sweet authenticity of children. And I thought, man, on the other hand, I'm thinking, oh, to be like a child. Like if we can
Mm,
just live in the moment and like get rid of all these external things and not worry about stupid competition and like getting wrapped up
yeah,
in things that don't matter and like can we all just get out there and like chase a squirrel from now and again and just like be one with like at the moment, that was also
yeah,
where my mind was going, and so there's
yeah.
value in that too, but that's a different point altogether.
That is a different point, and you're absolutely right. There is value in that, and we'll get to it. I think we'll get to a way to achieve what you've just described, John, with the chaos that surrounds us. Because
Yeah.
it's the external things going on that make it very difficult to be in the moment and just run around chasing squirrels with a smile on our face.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit more. Man, the time is flying. I know the time, and we don't have a lot of time left, but let's talk about focus and flow. Like,
Yeah.
how do we align with our purpose, and how does focus and flow help us do that?
Thanks for asking this because I think this is a missing piece to the whole self-help, uh,
Mm,
the self-help industry. You can fix yourself, right? That like lots
hmm.
of the quick fixes. There are
Yeah,
some hacks, right? There are some quick hacks on what. what's the definition of your purpose? Where's your happy place? There's lots of great resources out there to, you just have to Google that and you'll get 11 billion responses.
Yeah.
The question though is why do you get 11 billion responses? It means people are looking and they haven't found a solution often when you
Right.
see that much interest. And so where the focus and flow comes in, sadly, it's not enough just to get an idea of what our purpose is or what our sweet spot is or where we're supposed to be because life will work to throw us off track. By design, we don't control very, very many things and there can be an illusion. And I fall victim of this. One of my needs is to control things, and I have to really remind myself I don't probably control really anything other than the
It's a
way I see
facade.
it. Yeah, exactly. So the focus and flow is realizing this is also another concept in my book called the six essentials.
Hmm.
Once we get a sense for what our purpose is, eh, it's important that we make a choice to be guided by it, follow it, but we need guide or guardrails to do it
Hmm.
because things will throw us off track. And so those six essentials are your mind, your body, your soul, nutrition, money, and relationships. The kind of the fundamental things that we interact with in life. And so, for example, if our body, if our health, if we're not feeling well physically, it's going to be hard to translate that to a mental energy to want to stay within that zone of my purpose. If
Yeah.
our relationships are going off track, if we're having some conflict, partner conflict, parent child conflict, it can really take us in different directions. And so the focus in the flow is related to focusing on being guided by that purpose, using it to help with decision making. The flow comes in when we are tending to those six essentials. And when one of those things, as they will invariably get out of balance, we can be aware of it, and then we can take the time and the energy for as much time as needed to get that relationship item, for example, back on track. So then we can resume that journey of that purpose journey of ours because the other important aspects of our life are in order. So that's where the focus and flow comes from.
Yeah, and I like the way you kind of frame that up in terms of guardrails, around our purpose. And when you mentioned it a minute ago too, around like visionary leaders, there's a lot of energy behind that around visionary leaders, and they have a lot of purpose, and they have a lot of vision, and they have a lot of
Yeah.
aspirational goals, and all that kind of stuff. What they often don't have are the guardrails,
Yeah.
and so they're just kind of going all over the place. And in our personal lives or in our professional lives, a lot of times we focus so much on like try to figure out what your purpose is, try to figure out your goals. And so then we end up putting all that work into those things, but then we end up kind of going all over the place and we don't have the guardrails. We don't have the things to help us stay on track. So the guardrails I think really are important. And
Yeah.
what I've seen, and I agree with you, what I've seen are those people who, I don't think anyone really has a perfectly linear path to success because that's not growth. Like growth
Right.
requires quote unquote failure, it requires learning and falling down, getting back up, etc. And so that's the reality for everybody. Everyone goes through
Yes.
that. But as we're going through that, it's people who learn how to focus through the hardships, through the trials. Um, they're the ones that tend to find the successes in life. And I'm not talking about successes in terms of like worldly like definitions of success. I'm talking about the alignment successes. And sometimes it does end up looking like, societal quote unquote successes also, but the alignment successes occur, because of the focus that they also are able to exhibit. And so learning how to focus is such a huge skill, and it's one that I don't care how old you are. Like, I've seen some children who are amazing at focus, And I've
Hmm.
seen like adults and like elderly people who have no focus whatsoever. So it's not an age thing. Like
You're
it's
right.
it's just a skill that some people have and some people don't, and it can be developed.
It can be. It absolutely can be. You're right, John. And it is it's getting harder, right? With all the distractions, with just the sound bites that just take a look at using TikTok as an example. It's that
Mm,
firing through, 20 different images at once. And if we take this right back to what you were describing before about being in the present, that's really what focus is. When we're not in that state of focus, we're either dwelling a little bit on the past somehow, something that just happened or happened even a year ago, our mind wanders there, or we're looking at the future in some fashion. And that focus allows us to kind of a little bit just put on those sort of horse blinders so we can look straight ahead. For example, you and I right now, I would miss things. For example, if I happen to, had a screen beside me that just
hmm
has whatever, some kind of feed going on,
hmm
you know, I would miss a moment where you and I potentially there might have been a connection moment
Yeah.
that could have made all the difference in maybe my perspective or your perspective. And those moments can be fleeting. And so if we don't give ourselves the opportunity to focus, we miss out. Relationships suffer, right? Our own perception of of how we see ourselves as well can be affected. So you're right. Focus is a skill that is often missing, but can be learned.
Yeah, and it can be super fleeting, and they're often tiny little moments in the aggregate that create the relationships, the trust, the creativity and innovation and all the things, right? So,
Yes,
and
yes,
and so we think though, because they're fleeting, they're little, we think they're insignificant. We think they don't matter. We think that nobody notices. We think, et cetera, et cetera. But they do. And they do
yes.
matter. People do notice. Like it does matter. So
Yeah, absolutely.
well, Ted, I note the time. I've already kept you over. I need to let you go and get on with your busy day. But before we wrap things up, I just wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, where they can find your book, and then give us the final word on the topic for today.
Yeah, well, again, John, thanks very much. I'd love to engage with the audience. The easiest way to connect with me is just my name, Ted Bradshaw. My website is www.tedbradshaw.com. My socials are Ted Bradshaw. So a Google of that will get us connected. I do have some upcoming workshops around leadership and management that they can find as well, virtual as well as in person. So if some of what we talked about today piqued anyone's interest, I would really love to keep the conversation going. Last word, grateful for this opportunity. And again, I hope there was a nugget or two, or just someone else relating to what you and I talked about, and knowing full well that there is a bright path forward, and it's all part of this journey of ours.
Yeah, yeah, well said. Ted, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, to get connected, find out more about what Ted can do for you. Check out his book. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. We hope you stay healthy and safe, and please join us again soon.